Well, some news has started to trickle out. It's not official, but I thought it was worthy enough to talk about it because we've been kind of in a holding pattern, Derek, to see if Mauricio Pochettino is going to return as the national team manager after the 2026 World Cup. And there has been reports kind of indicating that it's going to happen, and we'll read that here in a second.
Yeah.
But this is crazy, man, because when he first took the job, most people thought this was a Band-Aid 2-year solution. Not going to take the job any longer than that. Like, this was just a short-term thing to get back on his feet, and then he's going to go back to club ball afterwards.
Yeah.
But, man, this has turned into something where it looks like he's on for the long haul.
I mean, that looks like it could be the case, and it certainly seems that's where the news is pointing to. I do want to keep in mind, however, that, there was this guy named Fabrizio not long ago who said Pirlo was going to be the manager of Italy, and it was as good as done, and then it wasn't. So I think maybe even if we're at 90% right now.
Hey, real quick, if you guys haven't already, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're growing like crazy. The World Cup is among us, and we have a lot of content you guys are not going to want to miss. So also make sure you guys hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of our videos.
There's still a 10% chance this thing could go south. I mean, it really depends because all the discussions are there are just some things they haven't worked out yet. Okay, well, sometimes people work those things out, and sometimes they can't work those 10% issues out. And I guess we're going to assume on this show that those things will be worked out. But, I try not to get ahead of myself is what I'm saying.
No, I understand your approach. You want to kind of wait and see to the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, right? You want to make sure it's officially official. But I thought it was worthy talking to because this is like something that's starting to trickle through, and there are more and more people confirming it. Yeah. And also, too, I feel like if Poach wasn't going to be here, we probably would have heard that he's definitely out. So I feel like the non-news was a good sign. And also, too, by the end of his last cycle, right, after the Belgian game, you kind of got the sense that he would ideally like to return if everything worked out in his favor, right? I mean, you really you could kind of sense he grew. He grew I don't want to say like love for the team, but you could see that he did care about it and he would like another crack at it.
Or he's like, this is a pretty cushy job. Yeah. I don't do anything for months. I get to stay in Europe, and every, number of weeks, I got to jump on a plane and go train some guys. And maybe there's also a feeling of like, hey, man, this is a little, I don't want to go out like that, right? I don't want to go out like that. Like, that was embarrassing. And maybe there's a little unfinished business. And maybe there is a little bit of like he felt the shine finally at the end. He was complaining quite a bit for a long time about, where are the fans? Why doesn't anybody care about this team? Get on board. This is ridiculous. What's wrong with this country? Didn't say that, not quoting him, but he surely intimated that. And then at the end, he started to feel some love from the fans and from the crowd, and maybe he did get attached to the players. But I do have to say that most coaches have some pretty thick skin because they bounce around from team to team. It's like being an army brat, which I am. You do have an amazing ability to move on to the next thing, right? Move on, find new friends at the new place you just moved to. And for him, I don't know if I'd say like he grew to love the players. That might be pushing it a little too much. But I do think that, hey, I've got unfinished business here maybe is a factor. And maybe he feels like there are some really good tools here. It's a cushy job. And this is something that I can make better next time. And I don't want to go out like a punk, like this team went out like a punk. And maybe he just wants to fix that.
Well, so, and also, I think it's a good thing too because his tenure, obviously, like you said, didn't end the way we would have liked it to end. or if that was his final say, right? And he took a team that was wounded badly. I mean, he took a like a sinking ship over, right? 19 months, 20 months to turn this around. Not a full cycle. Didn't know any of the players or really anything. He came in here blinded, honestly, and kind of just learned on the fly, on the whim. And I think he's learned a lot these last 20 months, and I want to see him with a full cycle. I want to see him take over a full cycle, and I want to see what he can do when he gets his hands on this for an entire 4 years. And he also has the 2-year head start, so he's going in here knowing a little more. But the most important thing is that who the hell else would we hire that would be better?
Oh, well, that's the hilarious thing. You go on Twitter and people are like, hey, we should try for Pep. What? No, it's not going to happen. That's not realistic. What about Matarazzo? He's not leaving Real Sociedad anytime soon. You probably have to wait a couple of years if you wanted Matarazzo. How about BJ? Okay, I'll listen to that. How about, this is the real one that annoyed me from Tab Ramos. Thierry Henry. Really? Thierry Henry. Did you watch him coach? I've watched him coach. Watched him coach 2 different teams into oblivion. Oh, well, he did a really good job with the French Olympic team. Well, who wouldn't have?
Right.
Who wouldn't have done good with that team? Listen, no offense to Thierry Henry, who's was a great player. Loved watching him. But as a player, as a coach, I've not been impressed at all. So, no. Tab, why are you saying these things? Is it because your brain has been corrupted by Tom Bogert on that show? Tom, don't, what is it? Don't Bogert that joint, my friend. I don't know if you've heard that song before. It's from a famous album. Anyhow, so sometimes I wonder about that show. I really do.
I've never watched it, honestly. I can honestly say I've never watched it.
Yeah, that show is, it's not bad. It's not a horrible show, but sometimes the things that comes out of Tab's mouth on that show recently, I'm like, that just doesn't even sound like Tab Ramos to me. Who, by the way, definitely was not upset about the hiring of Cherundolo. Was not. Right. Sure he wasn't. Yes, he was. He was.
Well, and so that's the key thing. People always say we don't want to, like, I've seen a lot of people, especially in the media, say they don't want to keep Pochettino. There was Doug McIntyre, like having an agenda, it looked like, to not have him rehired, or at least the pieces he was putting out. Yeah. Alexi said something about how he failed and maybe he doesn't deserve another chance. And I just think that that's completely whack. I don't agree with any of that. I think that he's done more to give me hope than any coach has done in a long time for me, with just the way we played and the confidence we had, even if we did lose to Belgium. And I want to see continuity. I want to see this continue over and see what it can be. Now, look, could he fail? Yeah, he could. But sure. I would roll the dice on it to see what happens rather than hire some unknown or a new coach to restart from scratch. I want to see what he can do, because I feel like he got a lot out of players that others he got a lot out of these players that previous coaches have not been able to get out of them. So this is a dream, man. Like, if you told me prior to the World Cup what we would do outside the Belgium game, but just like the way we would look, and that Poch wants to stay, I would have said, holy shit, this is great.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, this is the first time we've ever seen the United States come to a World Cup and play like that. Like they were the aggressors. They were the attackers. They were the ones in control. Like, we've not really seen that, right? We've seen good U.S. performances, like in the 2002 World Cup. And there were games where we were like, my jaw was hitting the floor because we really outplayed Germany in 2002 and should have won that game. So there are other times we've seen some amazing feats by this U.S. team, but not recently. Not for a very long time. Not this kind of utter dominance. So, and then Belgium, right? That's what we don't want to see going forward. And you got to wonder, well, what was that? And does he know how to fix that so that doesn't happen again? I don't know. I don't know if he does or not. I don't know if the players do, because they all came out and said, well, it just wasn't our day. Well, what the heck does that mean? That's like, well, we just didn't put on our game face that day. What does that mean? What's a game face? To quote Bobby Knight, what's a game face? So we'll see if but people using that as the excuse, the Belgium game, for not rehiring him. Well, nobody ever has anybody else in mind. The only thing I can think of with Doug McIntyre, for instance, since he's been and was already a pusher of Cherundolo for the job prior. Remember, he was pushing that out when they
years
were looking
ago.
When we were looking for a new coach. And I think that it ended up just being Berhalter again, but or was that after Berhalter? But either way, he was already getting us prepared. No, it was after Berhalter was definitely fired. We were looking for a new coach, and Doug McIntyre comes on Fox, and he's like, yeah. No, I think all of us need to be prepared. I think the next coach is going to be Cherundolo. And most of us thought, oh, that's because he knows something.
Yeah.
Right? Like somebody at US Soccer's already leaked that to him. That was scary. But no, it was just Doug being pro Cherundolo. And so for him, now after Cherundolo being hired as the U23 coach, was just another way to slither your way into the intern management position if Poch doesn't get rehired. It's just seems like Doug's just got a plan, and it's very pro Dolo, which is it's fine, but just come out and say it.
Be honest about it, right? Yeah, no, yeah. I agree with that. And, I don't want Steve Cherundolo to be our manager. I want Pochettino. Listen, Adam said this too. He was saying that he's not a big 2-cycle guy, but this isn't 2-cycle. This is a 1/3 cycle and a full cycle. So this is not a full cycle. So this is different. This is way different. I want to see him get a full start to finish cycle. And then after that, we can move on. But I want to see him be the coach in 2030 and see what he can do. Because like I said, I think continuity with this group is very important, but not comfortable continuity. I'm talking about like being held accountable, getting the most out of them. I think Pochettino is going to have more free reign too with, having 4 years. And I can't wait to see what happens with this his next tenure. So let me ask you this. I want to get to a comment that someone had about this whole hiring process that was complaining about it. But what do you think exactly he's looking to get out of this next cycle? Not I don't mean for like to prove himself right, but we know there's obviously a hang up with maybe why they haven't came to an agreement yet. What are some things you think maybe he's trying to aim for that could be holding this up? Is he wanting more say over coaching in the under 20 teams? Is he, I don't think it's just money. I think it's probably more stuff than that.
Poch does not come off as the kind of guy who wants to meddle in the rest of this. I think he just wants to focus on the national team, and that's it. I don't think he wants any more extra control. I don't think that's the problem. I do think some of the problem is, I do think it's money. I do think he wants more money because this is a huge commitment on his part, because obviously, he's going to miss out on some jobs here if he fully commits to be with us for the next 4 years. He's going to miss the obvious jobs that open up at Man United or Tottenham or wherever, right? So I do think it's money. And I don't think it's just for him. I think it's for his whole staff. I think he wants a raise around the whole room if they're going to stay and be committed. Because I think even a lot of assistants are probably like, oh, Jesus, we're going to do this for 4 and more years? And we're going to fly all over Central America during qualifying? That sounds like a pain in the ass. I don't want to do that. So, okay, it's a lot more work this time, so I want to be paid more. Because I honestly, I don't see anything else he would really want. He is not the kind of guy who's going to want control of the U20s and the U15s and how if that soccer is development is structured in the United States. He's not giving a crap about that. I mean, he would love to see pro rel, right? But he's not going to demand that from U.S. Soccer in his negotiations.
Hey, everyone, quick word from our sponsor, FanDuel. If you're into soccer like I am, you already know how exciting La Liga, the Premier League, and MLS matches can get. With FanDuel, you can make it even more fun by placing bets on your favorite teams and matches across all three leagues. Whether it's a Premier League showdown, a La Liga thriller, or an MLS game with your local club, FanDuel makes it easy and exciting to bet on what you watch. Just remember, you have to be 21 years or older to play. Please bet responsibly and only if you're of legal age and in a state where it's allowed. Download the FanDuel app or head over to fanduel.com, sign up, and get in on the action. Thanks for supporting the channel through FanDuel.
But maybe it could be the other way around. Maybe U.S. Soccer's like, well, hey, we need you to be able to go out and recruit dual nats, right? Are you willing to do that? Because last time you said you weren't willing, and then the only time you did it was with Noah Kai Banks, and that failed.
Well, that's actually a good segue because I want to ask you that. What is something that you want to see Pochettino do better in his second term? That maybe not necessarily on the field, but is there anything that a manager's tasked with doing that you want to see him do better in his first full cycle?
Well, dual nats is going to have to be an improvement because it's becoming more competitive. We've got some really good players in the Bundesliga, for instance. I'll just stick with one league here for this discussion. But not only do you have Noah Kai Banks, you have another kid named Colbreth who plays at Bayer Leverkusen. And he's somebody we should not – I'm not saying we need to go out and buy him cars and presents and, pretend that we want them to be our girlfriends. We need to go out there and say, hey, we're interested in you and what you're doing and your progress. That's it. And if you're ever interested in us, let us know, right? That's what real recruiting is anyhow. You never go beg. Anybody that goes and beg, Greg never begged, and everybody thinks he's the greatest recruiter of all time. All Greg said is, we'd like to invite you into camp because we're interested in your future with us, as well as your future, your club. And if you're interested in that, let us know. He never begged for the night. I'll get you a new car, a new Lamborghini. None of that. Or I promise you playing time at the next World Cup. Greg didn't do any of that. So that we're not asking for, I don't know, when people say recruiting on Twitter, I don't really think they understand. It's not really recruiting. It's just tapping a guy on the shoulder and letting him know you care. And so he'll need to do that better because, I listed out all 25 prospects in the Bundesliga a week ago or so on Twitter, and every single one of them is a dual nat. Every single one. And that goes for every dual nat in England, practically, every dual nat in Holland, every dual nat in Spain. You keep going down the list. They're all dual nats. Nobody is just, whatever you want to call it, apple pie American. They have other options. So he's going to have to keep an eye on that. He's going to have to do better with that. And he's going to have to play the young players too. We're going to have to start giving them a chance. And I think that's not going to be a problem. But, that's the one thing he's going to have to do better, dual nats.
No, I agree with that. I want to see him seem like, there was points in time where we felt like maybe he didn't show his concern or care. Like he seemed like he was a little bit carefree in certain times of the job. Obviously, that didn't turn out to be the case. We had a good performance, I think, overall. Even it was a failure, but it wasn't lack of effort for the most of the tournament, right? It's just we were ill prepared for a certain game. Either way, I don't think you could look at the tournament and say, oh, he was just careless. He didn't give a shit about this tournament. I don't think that's what you would define it as. No. But I want to see that type of energy throughout the downtime too. Like the season, like when we were playing in other friendlies or the Gold Cup or Copa America. I want to see that urgency. I want to see that care. So here's one more question I have for you. Then I want to bring up this comment. Okay. Mm-hmm. If Pochettino signs his deal, ink meets paper, right? Do you think he's going to make it all 4 years?
The cynic in me says no.
Now, what's telling you no? Is it because his job is poor or because he gets a job he can't refuse?
I think there are going to be offers that are going to be really hard for him to turn down. And there'll be club offers from big clubs. Now, shockingly, those didn't come this time around, which makes you think he might not be as wanted a commodity as we all thought, you know. So maybe that isn't going to be an issue. So if that holds true, and Tottenham isn't looking for a manager again, he always talks about, I love managing at Tottenham, and they continue to stink, then, they'll certainly be after him eventually. But maybe the case is that he's not as, thought of as well as we all thought he was. Maybe that's not true. So maybe he will survive 4 years. I hate using the crystal ball. So I don't know the answer to that, but it is a significant concern that a lot of people have, and I absolutely understand why they do.
I don't know. I think if he takes the job, he's probably committed, I would say, unless he gets something bad happens, and then maybe he gets out of town before he's ran out of town. So I think he probably, if I had to tilt the meter, I'd say he like 60% likely he stays the whole 4 years. That would be the way the scale would tip for me.
We get grouped in Copa, and it's embarrassing.
Yes, and instead of getting fired, he leaves before he gets fired.
Yeah.
Takes a job at, wherever before he gets canned. Okay, so this comment I saw earlier, I wanted to bring this up to you. This is from USMNT Prospects. So Andres Cantor was actually the first person to report that Pochettino was leaning in the direction of re-signing with the USMNT yesterday. And he says, I do not think his overall body of work with the United States justifies this. I don't even think the World Cup was anything more than okay at best. And our good friend Pete said, who do you think would do a better job and based on what data? And his response was, Berhalter did just as good of a job and he's totally mediocre. On what data? We can compare their two cycles. Berhalter, in fact, probably had a better overall cycle. Pochettino did a terrible job during the cycle and okay at the World Cup. Berhalter was okay during the cycle and World Cup. Let me just say this real quick. I'm going to give you the floor. Let me just say one thing, and I'm going to let you finish it off, okay? This is just so deceiving because if Berhalter was so good, then what the hell's the mess that Pochettino inherited?
Yeah.
What's the mess? Who left that mess, that shit pile of a stain that Pochettino was tasked with getting out of the bed sheet?
Yeah.
It was Berhalter.
Absolutely. So our friend, U.S. men's national team prospects, actually not really, but a friend.
Just an acquaintance.
Berhalter did just a good of job, and he's totally mediocre. No, he didn't. And you're going to say, well, he won this Gold Cup, and he won the Nations League, and blah, 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 blah. Well, first of all, Poach didn't get a full round, right? He got 18 months, so it's not a fair comparison. By the way, did Berhalter's team ever look as good as some of the games we saw under Poach? Never. So that's not fair. Poach's team at its best looked way better than anything Berhalter ever did. I could say the same thing about Callahan. BJ's teams played better when Greg was gone. Okay? So if you want to make an argument for BJ, fine. But don't give me this Berhalter did just as good a job and he's mediocre. I totally disagree. As you pointed out, Poach inherited a team that liked to go play golf and have dinner and treated the national team as a vacation. And I believe it because Greg formed the leadership committee, and that's a committee that took over basically running most of the team. He let the patients run the asylum. Okay? Anybody who knows anything about the team will know that was true. And then the rest of it, Pochettino did a terrible job during the cycle. I don't know what he's basing that on. I mean, it wasn't great. It was an up and down thing, but it was mostly just a bunch of friendlies and letting them know you're going to have to fight for your spot. So, and again, who else are you going to get? So, anyhow, it's not the worst comment I've read online. At least he admits Greg was mediocre.
But then I feel like it's one of those things where he says, having said that, Berhalter, in fact, probably had a better overall cycle. And I mean, I feel like he's canceling out the mediocre when he even has that remote, anything with better and Berhalter and it does not go together.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just think this guy, I feel like there's been all this propaganda that's anti-Poach that people are buying into, and they're not believing what they see. They're just like buying into what they're reading. I know what I saw, and I saw a score like 12 goals in like 4 or 5 games. We've never done that before. I watched us win 2 games in the group stage, and then I had a rebuttal with one person about Berhalter arguing about this. Maybe it was even USMNT prospects. I said, if Berhalter was the coach, we maybe would have been grouped this time, maybe. And if we weren't grouped, when Balogun got a red card, we probably would have pissed down our leg and would have found a way to probably squander that game and lost in the round of 32.
It's very possible. Again, I mean, those are
hypotheticals.
Hypotheticals, but yeah, the real painful thing about this is, yes, I was there at one point criticizing Pochettino quite heavily. So I understand where some of his angst is. I did not like, for instance, what I thought was unnecessary at the time. I felt an unnecessary blood sport match with Pulisic. I thought that was unproductive. But in the end, he had his reasons for doing that. And that was for him to say, I'm the boss. And what I say goes. And I'm going to criticize you if I feel like criticizing you. And I think in the end, that ended up being a good thing for the team. Maybe not so good for Christian Pulisic, but it was better for the team. And so my feelings about Poach evolved over time, but he seriously won me over at the World Cup because that Paraguay game was amazing. The game against Australia was really, really good. The game against Bosnia was, all the 3 of those games were top notch. I'm not even talk about Turkey because you know why. And then the Belgian game was a stinker, and it happened. And but to say overall that he just is going to ignore those 3 amazing games against, they're not world beater teams, but they're good teams. Paraguay went on to beat Germany. They're not a crap team. We made them look like children. So if you don't want to admit that those were 3 great performances, that's, I guess, on you. And I guess you'll have to live with that. But then again, if he had some great coach who would come in and take Poach's spot, then, I could listen to baloney like this, but I can't because there is no one else. So there's that.
Final question I have: if when it gets officially done, what would you rate the re-signing of him to be the next manager out of a 10?
I mean, it's a re-signing, but it's a hard re-signing, you would think, unless he just really enjoyed the whole chill nature of being a national team manager. And we talked about all the other reasons he might want to come back. I guess I'd give like an 8, a 7.5, 8, somewhere around there. I mean, it sounds like it's been a lot easier to convince him than we thought it was.
I think he genuinely loves his team or the experience of coaching. He cried when he lost the Gold Cup. He was singing Country Roads or on the field. You could just tell. I feel like he's grew a bond with the national team. I don't know about the players, but just the aspect of being the manager of the national team. If we re-sign him, I'd probably give it a little bit higher grade. I'd probably give it a 9. And the only reason I say 9 is because I'm not saying he took us by storm, but like the highs were very high, Derek. And the fact of, like you said, of being a hard re-signing, I didn't think this was feasible. I was talking to Lexi before the tournament started, and I said, is this guy already focused on his next job before his current job is even done? But that's far from the truth. He was dialed in. So
right.
That's why I think have a higher number, because I was impressed and I didn't think this was realistic.
Yeah.
A couple months ago.
One thing I would say, just to add on in the end here, he's got to do better. Although I like it when he's prickly with the media, because it just makes my day covering it so much easier, because that's just free content when he's kind of an ass with the media. Probably needs to do a better job with that. Maybe tighten up his English a little bit when he's answering. So I mean, I got better at understanding what he was trying to get across as time went on. But I think that'll probably come natural, maybe. Of course, I mean, doesn't he live in London and Barcelona? Or those his two headquarters? I mean, he has homes in both. So you'd think he spends enough time in London, he'd be speaking English with an English accent by now, but I guess not. Because one thing I did not like, and I do not like, and I don't think it's very helpful, is when half the questions from the media are in Spanish. And if you want to translate that, that's fine. But I think the question should be asked in English so the English-speaking media can cover the team. And I know that there are, but I would do both. If you're going to ask a question in Spanish, also say it in English. And then if you can, have him answer it both times. I mean, he goes on forever sometimes, so that'd be really difficult. But, I think that if you want to do both, do both. But I don't think it should be either or. And by the way, the media guys don't need to start their question in Spanish by saying, or English by saying the following thing. Yes, this is Brian Schroeder. This question is in English. I think we'll be able to figure out what language it's in once you start speaking and asking the question. Have you seen this? This is so-and-so. This next question is in Spanish. Okay. No kidding. Really? I think we can tell what language it's in as soon as you start asking the question. That's unbelievable to me.
Well, hopefully he's got his list of things to improve, right? But overall, I feel pretty good about it. Let's hope it gets across the line, and it will make the cycle much better to cover the next 4 years, because this was the most fun I've had in a while covering this team was the last 2 years with him. Yeah. So I like this. I'm excited about this. I'm very happy for it to happen. Guys, go check out Derek and Brett at the Straight Red Card live every Monday night. They're doing videos too. They're sporadic. They don't have a set schedule with that, but they're definitely live every Monday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure you guys go check them out. I'll be collabing with them, so you'll be able to see their channel down below. Derek, any final words before we head out, my friend?
No, always a pleasure. And I guess hopefully we'll figure out within the next week that this is a done deal.
Fingers crossed.
All right.
Hope it gets across the line. All right, guys, if you enjoy this, make sure you give us a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. Until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.